morning. Thank you all for being here for this special meeting this morning to begin at 10 o'clock. We have full board this morning, and we have an agenda. Any comments before we move forth with the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda to allow for public comments before we have a discussion on the topic.
Is there a second?
Second.
Everybody understand the motion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
The chair hears 3 noes and 2 yeses, which means that no one will be allowed to speak this morning. All right, with that. Fletcher and Freer, it's your special call meeting, and it's your item on the list.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve the authorization of Attorney Clark Wright to draft and file the amicus brief in the litigation between the National Audubon Society, Southern Environmental Law Center, and the United States Corps of Engineers, Colonel Robert J. Clark, in his official capacity as District Commander of the Wilmington District versus Town of Ocean Isle Beach, in the United States Court of the Eastern District of North Carolina, East Division case number 717 CV 0612-FL.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I would move that the movement be the first person up to discuss the topic and give his reasons why he is in favor of it.
Okay, that's no problem. As you know, as the board knows, Attorney Clark Wright has sent 2 letters to the board recently. We had a discussion and possible action at our regular October 23rd meeting, where he presented potential impact to Holden Beach shoreline protection due to this litigation, and he also had some other more detailed guidance in his notes that I'll refer to. Said one being that he advised the town against moving to intervene as a party in the OIB litigation, so we are not joining the suit. He also said, with regard to filing a potential friend of the court or amicus brief, continue to recommend that the board give this serious consideration in regard the following information clarification. The filing of an amicus brief with the town is a one-shot action. It does not obligate the town to take any further action. It does not make the town a party to the lawsuit. It also does not require the town to adopt any of the positions being argued by the President of the Audubon Society or its legal counsel, the Southern Environmental Law Center. The next point, I won't read the entire thing, but the town of Holden Beach has significant, relevant, factual, and legal interests separate and distinct from those of any of the existing parties to the OIB litigation. Also, as of now, nothing of the record in the federal OIB case allows the court to be aware of these material circumstantial changes, those being that the Holden Beach current position has changed dramatically from when this EIS was created, due to the current board repealing and replacing the ordinance that had Holden Beach direct the town to basically go forth and build a permanent run on the east end of Holden Beach. So those are significant changes from this board and from the voters of Holden Beach. And filing an amicus brief is the most cost-effective, targeted means by which to correct this arguably material deficiency in the record of proceedings in that case. Also, the desired end result is to advocate for the court in the OIB lawsuit to find that the current record of decision made by the court, along with the course, concurrent issuance of federal Section 10 and Section 404 permits violate the governing provisions of the Federal Administration Act, such that the federal court should reverse the current record of decision, permitting decisions, and remand the matter back to the agency for further proceedings that do not properly comply with governing legal requirements, among other things. And he has a list. I'll go through that later if we need to. But, so basically, in closing, he says that making this consideration be the simplest, most common sense point. It defies logic to say, on the one hand, that the town needs to turn on drawing to trap sand for the benefit of the property owners located on the updrift side of the structure, and to justify the project by saying that less dredging of the associated inlet will be needed, with less free nourishment on that updrift side, while at the same time, and in the same breath, assuring everyone located on the downdrift side that all of these fancy surrounding mitigation measures should assure them that there will be not be negative impacts to those property owners, including the Holden Beach's valuable west and public beaches, property owners, and wildlife resources. As North Carolina SB 151 makes clear, this is, in the end, a grand experiment conducted at the peril of the downdrift property owners and resources, no matter how the language in the documents gets described in so-called mitigation measures, and no matter the undeniable economics of the core financial analysis, so we eloquently described that by Professor Andy Cohen's white papers. And that
Before I respond, could I ask you what your goal is by filing this amicus brief?
Our goal is to file this brief so that the Corps of Engineers redoes the OIB EIS to have the current position and along with that, a more robust participation in that from Holden Beach.
In a nutshell, you want them to pull the permit from Ocean.
I don't think the permit's it's a record of decision.
Right.
So, yeah.
The permit's been issued, they're in litigation, right?
Fine.
So what you want them to do is to stop the process and start it all over again at Ocean Isle Beach.
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm clearly in opposition to this. There are any number of reasons why I am in opposition. Number one is, through no fault of our own, we're currently in a contentious situation with Oak Island because it's our belief that Oak Island is encroaching on the rights of Holden Beach by taking the material from the latest planned Lockwood Folly dredging without us having any input in it, in that decision at all. I don't think it is beneficial for the town of Holden Beach to also get into a contentious situation with Oak Island when there's really no reason for it. We, as a community, have been told a number of times, in fact, we had some people here to be advocates for the town, that one of the reasons that the shore communities are somewhat shortchanged when it comes to the reimbursement of tax dollars and funding is because we're such a small community and we really don't have much weight. We have 650 voters on the island. And nobody's going to listen to 650 voters when you compare that to someone from Charlotte or from Raleigh. So we should be working to have a consortium where all of the beach communities work together rather than putting our issues into the issues of another island. Secondly, what Commissioner Freer just read, a lot of that has to do with what we decided as a board. And what we decided as a board was for what we thought was best for Holden Beach. We didn't take into consideration the effect that it would have on Oak Island or the effect that it would have on Ocean Isle Beach. We looked at it and we said, For this community, building a groin makes no environmental or economic sense, and that's what I voted for. Now, if you read the letter from Clark Wright, and I appreciate everything he did, and I'm glad he keeps us apprised of the issues, I just disagree with his, conclusion. We now are supposed to take what we believe to be right on this island and extrapolate that to Ocean Isle Beach and tell those commissioners that they're not right in deciding how to spend their money and the decisions to make on their island. I wouldn't want the Oak Island people or the Ocean Isle people telling Mike Sullivan that he doesn't know what he's talking about or know what he's doing. I make decisions based on what I know, what I feel is best for this island, and I'm assuming that they do the same thing for their island. So as far as that goes, I don't think we should be in there. Secondly, the people who are proponents of this wanted us to stop getting involved and withdraw our application for the groin the moment that we were elected to this board. And the reason they gave for that continuously and repeatedly was they wanted to stop paying attorney's fees for the groin. Why do we want to pay attorney's fees for Ocean Isle's groin? It makes no sense to me. Third, we have a firm that does our analysis for the beach and for the movement of the sand. We have consistently, continually, and up to this moment argued that we are entitled to the sand on the east end of this beach because the motion of the waves and the water brings the sand from the east to the west. We just authorized payment on our last meeting to have our engineers scientifically prepare a paper to support that proposition. And now we're arguing that somehow on the west end of this beach, there's going to be a total difference in the flow of the water so that the sand is going to be taken away from our beach or the channel is going to be full. It just doesn't make sense. And so for all of those reasons, I'm firmly against it. And one of the other things is I'm a little bit confused with Mr. Wright because he's talking about the downdrift. I agree with that because the groin will stop the sand from going down. We happen to be up. We're on the other side of it. So how does the argument about the downdrift affect our island? It doesn't. I forgot one other thing. In the permit for Ocean Isle Beach and in the final environmental impact study, they have the same protections in that study for Holden Beach that Holden Beach had in its groin application to protect Oak Island. That if there are damages, we have a recourse to get those damages reimbursed from Oak Island, that there's going to be testing conducted to make sure that there's no damage, that there's already been testing done to set a baseline. So I think that any concern that we have as an island is already addressed in the permitting process. Thank you.
Let me,
Excuse me, I think the rules are that we each
Okay,
get
go
a
ahead.
chance to talk before it goes back around, okay? First, I'd just like to make a point. There was no solicitation of Clark Wright's opinion, so I don't want anybody to feel that something abnormal was going on. He very generously gave us his opinion for us to consider and to take or not. However, we had no discussion at the Board of Commissioners meeting October 23rd on the initial recommendation. It was a presentation, and at that time, there was no Board of Commissioner that made any comment. There was no discussion. The commissioners in favor of the action today chose not to speak at that time when the public was present and could have commented. I echo Commissioner Sullivan's comment that the decision on our groin was made for the circumstances on Holden Beach Island. Our understanding of the dynamics on Holden Beach and the fact that we felt and feel that we have an adequate methodology that can stabilize our east end that was to us economically and environmentally preferable to putting in a groin and the cost of keeping the groin as well as other renourishment activities. That is not necessarily the same as exists on Ocean Isle Beach, and in fact I can read to you from the OIB FEIS that OIB attempted a supplemental beach fill along the eastern end in conjunction with the 2006-07 pending periodic nourishment operation for the federal project. Since it failed to provide any significant long-lasting relief to the erosion threat, the town does not plan to use this approach in future. This seems to me to be different from our own opinion that we know how to stabilize our east end as long as we get our sand every couple years to renourish the erosion. The Town of Holden Beach Board of Commissioners made a decision for our circumstance. In my opinion, that does not mean that we are here to advocate one way or another on terminal groin decisions throughout the state. If there are commissioners who do feel that their understanding now makes them an advocate for not allowing terminal groins, I think that that is perfectly acceptable for those individuals, and they as individuals could join different environmental groups or form committees or groups that would then advocate against terminal groins. But the Town of Holden Beach Board of Commissioners is here to pass judgment on the Town of Holden Beach circumstances, not Ocean Isle. The Town of Holden Beach did have the capability to comment on the Ocean Isle FEIS, and in fact did provide comments which are reflected in the table. The Ocean Isle Record of Decision and the FEIS do address the circumstances expected on the west end of Holden Beach. I remind people I do live on the west end of Holden Beach, so of course I am going to be interested in the accuracy and the thoroughness of the assessment and the information provided on what will be done to monitor and mitigate. That is what this board should be concerned about, the potential impact on the west end and any other part of the island if it is considered it goes further east than the west end. The Town of Holden Beach made comments. The Town of Holden Beach has opinions. It would actually behoove this board to understand whether or not our own beach engineering expert did agree that the mitigation and the monitoring that was in the record of decision for OIB, was it significant? I'm not aware that anybody has asked for that. To ask the town manager the involvement of the town in the overall discussions and process of Ocean Isle Beach before deciding that there should be some sort of action because we were not adequately represented or we could be harmed. I have reread a great deal of the OIB document. I would request that other commissioners do the same. And before there is any decision one way or another, I would also request that we hear from our own town attorney in either an open or a closed session. I know that she will be here on Monday for another meeting, and we could wait for any decision until we have the chance for everyone to actually review the facts as are there, to ask our engineer consultant and our town manager for background information that we may not remember or are not readily available in the files, and then seek the town attorney's opinion. Thank you.
John or Joe, one of you want to speak?
Yeah, I just want to say, the filing of the brief does not express the town's concerns pertaining to potential issues with the west end and the shoreline of Holden Beach when Ocean Isle Beach constructs the terminal groin. There's a number of unknowns here that really concern me. I think I've expressed a number of the concerns pertaining to the inlet regarding the decision that we made about our own terminal groin, constructing the terminal groin on the east end of the island. And these concerns really, potentially, without having sufficient data to support it, right, have an impact to the inlet. And by meaning the inlet, I mean the Charlotte Inlet, along with the west end shoreline. And I support, and I gotta be honest, I support the need to express our concerns regarding these issues. And, unfortunately, the courts, and we just found this out recently, we only have till November 20th to file a brief with the courts. You're shaking your head no, but that's what I read, and that's what I have in information. So, with that, I'm looking for, and I couldn't find really a better assessment or evaluation and discussion pertaining to any impact to the West End. So, I guess you can hear that I'm in favor of filing the brief.
John?
Yeah, I have read the Ocean Isle brief, and I have no desire to suggest to Ocean Isle that they don't have a right to have a groin, or anybody else to have one. We decided that we didn't believe that the risk associated with the groin made good sense for us, so we withdrew from it. The only thing I would like to do is to have the court, because if the court doesn't have it in front of them, they can't consider it. I would like for the court to have our views, current views now. The ones that went 2 or 3 years ago don't apply. This board changed. We went from supporting a groin to not supporting a groin. I would like them to know that we fear that there's a risk to our west end, depending on what happens to the inlet down there. And I know that every time you dredge that inlet, there are consequences. You make the inlet one way, it damages one side, you make it the other, it damages the other. I would just like the court to be able to know what our position is now on that. No other intent, no intent to interfere with the process at Ocean Isle or suggest that Ocean Isle doesn't have a right to do what it wants to do with the groin. So in that regard, I am in favor of filing a brief that makes our position clear today on our suggestion of there could be risk to the west end that we'd like to be considered by the court today.
John, can I ask you then, is your intent just to inform the court, or is your intent to have the permit pulled?
No,
So that Ocean
my
Isle,
intent is simply to make sure the court has it in front of them, because if they don't, they can't consider it.
then I ask you this, is it worth it just to inform the court? Because, an amicus brief, think about what it is. It's a friend. So you're either for one party and against the other. That's the reason you file it. So if we're going to file a brief just to inform the court of, in your case, just to inform the court of your updated thoughts on it, but you really don't want to stop it, is that really something that's worth getting into a contest with Ocean Isle for? And to think that in the future, I can only believe that somewhere in the future, Holden Beach is going to want to have a project that either Ocean Isle or Oak Island can in some way say, this could affect us. So now that instead of just letting us do our business as we've been doing in the past, now we're going to have to deal with them in an adversarial position. I just don't think it's worth it. Believe me, I want to have protection for the West End, but I think that we have that protection built into it, and that this exercise just doesn't make, again, when we voted on the groin, it didn't make economic sense, it didn't make environmental sense. This doesn't make economic sense, and it doesn't make political sense. And I don't think we should go through it.
John, I appreciate hearing your concern for the West End. Would you agree that it could be useful for us to talk to our consulting engineer, our coastal engineer, Fran Wright, and hear his opinion of how he feels the existing monitoring and mitigation plans that are built into the record of decision, in his mind, do or do not put to rest concerns about the west end.
I don't think I need that time. I think I know what his position is. I think I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I don't think Fran is the expert on terminal grinds either, so I
No,
don't think there's
he's-
much value to that.
He was our expert.
And not with terminal grinds. So this is how the terminal grind would affect the west end.
Let me say.
And in the
No.
EIS, it's unknown. It's actually
No,
unknown.
it's about what is proposed as adequate monitoring and mitigation plans in case the monitoring indicates there is something happening that the modeling is not predicting. That is the question. Is he comfortable with that?
I think Mike made a comment. I think we have protection. You know, that rings a bell in my ears. I think we have protection. I don't know that we have protection. There's a number of unknowns, and we learn about our own groin and our own inlet out here that there are concerns potentially about that. Let me make it perfectly clear that I'm not saying Ocean Isle Beach don't build the groin. My concern purely is with the impact of the groin and the impact to the inlet.
I agree. So, and then this EIS was published in April of 2016, before we did a lot of work understanding our terminal groin, the impact that it would have, and before we directed the town to stop building of our terminal groin, and the position of our town has changed, and that affects our
Let me ask you this
position
question.
on the west end.
I understand that. But with, again, the decision that we made was based on the economic and environmental for this island. With all of the study we did and all that we learned from the time that the drawing was proposed until the time that we withdrew it, I don't believe that I read one thing or one person said it's going to have a negative impact on Oak Island, and that's the reason that we're going to withdraw our application. We never discussed any negative impact that may have been on Oak Island. We never discussed that it was going to be detrimental to an upstream island. Never. So the difference, the change that we made, or the decision that we made, had nothing to do with the potential damage to the west. Right? Nothing. But now you're trying to say, or I don't see where there's a correlation between us withdrawing our application and any fear that there is or was the potential for damage to be updrift of the groin. And I don't see how we can apply that to this circumstance.
So we've never had a record of decision, so Oak Island, and Oak Island was in our EIS as well. My understanding, there was some discussion between the town and Oak Island before our decision that we would have readdressed. And what I learned were the numerous flaws in the EIS that are also repeated in the Army Corps of Engineers EIS for Ocean Island.
Would you please specify some of those serious flaws and how they would impact the decision on how they will monitor and mitigate the west end of Holden Beach?
The thing that I bring out is it's an unknown, was used many times, experimental, used many times. We don't know. That's the problem. That is to me the major flaw in these EISs. There's a lot of unknown that we should be a part of from a position, a totally different position that we were previously in before April of 2016.
May I ask the town manager?
We're asking to protect the West End, that's all we're asking to do.
That is not what you said. May I ask the town manager the level of involvement that the town of Holden Beach had in discussions, public comments, etc. during the Ocean Isle terminal growing process, which I know lasted several years.
Could I interject before he does that? Before, he was under the direction of a previous ordinance to build a terminal groin at the east end of Holden Beach when this happened. But go ahead.
But are you implying that he would not take care of the West End because he was under the direction to build a terminal growing on the East End? I'm sorry, I just wanted to make clear that that was not your intent.
Mr. Hewitt.
The town of Holden Beach, I would attended all, if not most, of the public hearings on throughout the development of the EIS, the preliminary documents, and in conjunction with our consulting engineer provided input as to what the mitigation and monitoring requirements suggested that a technical advisory, our specific comments resulted in recommending that a technical advisory committee be established with monitoring thresholds. In the end, that actual, those suggestions were to form a technical advisory committee were not included and just went right straight to establishing a mitigation strategy that said that the causality will not be attempted to be determined, and if there's a mitigation that needs to happen, it will happen.
Okay, if the commissioners have a break in their comments, without objection, I'd like to have a couple minutes to have some input.
That's the gavel to the coaches that you're entering into.
Am I gonna,
I think that's part of the
debate
rules.
it? You're assuming I'm gonna.
I'm sorry, I'm just,
If you're assuming I don't have an objection, because a lot of people are gonna want to hear what I want to say. So I'll debate it or yet, it doesn't make any difference to me. You're in charge, sir.
Do you have any objections to the mayor commenting?
The first thing is, I was in total shock whenever I received this special meeting notice. The commissioners, to my knowledge, and I think I've been awake at all the meetings, we've never had a meeting that the commissioners have discussed this possibility. The mayor has never been in a conversation or communication of any kind with the three movers of this motion concerning this item. So I was totally in the blind of it. Since this meeting has been announced, I've had phone calls, people stop me on the street wanting to know what the heck's going on. And I said, I don't know, because nobody told me. And then this morning, Mayor Pro Tem tried to give an opportunity to allow input from the public on this subject, and it was denied. So what I'm understanding is that the three motion supporters have had no communication as a board with the town attorney, with the general public, having an opportunity to speak and participate. In fact, even denied that opportunity. And this morning, the record will please show that in the audience this morning, we have the Mayor of Ocean Isle and staff. We have representation from North Carolina State University, who owns the property on the west end of Holden Beach beyond the developed area. We have representation from a state of North Carolina Environmental Board. We have a North Carolina House of Representative person here. We have a Brunswick County Commissioner here. We have the general public here, and the press is here. So the only people that have had an opportunity to discuss this, in my eyes, are the three motion supporters and the attorney who presented himself at the last board meeting offering his services at a cut rate if we would give him the job to do what you're proposing to do. And I have, in the last 5 minutes, heard that our staff under contract with the town of Holden Beach to monitor and keep up with our sand on our beach strand and so forth, that he is not capable of having an opinion worthy to be considered. But on the other hand, that the attorney that has previously openly admitted that he does not support terminal groins, and who took the job initially from this board, representing that he would represent the town in regards to the East End terminal groin at Holden Beach for $10,000, and the board ended up paying him $49,000, which in my simple math is about 5 times what he quoted originally. And he stood over there the other day and said, or the other night, and said that he would give us a reduced price for his services. And I don't want to quote the number, but I think it's somewhere $10,000 or $15,000. So I'm just immediately calculating, we'll multiply that times 5, maybe. And oh, by the way, once you file this thing, does everybody in this room understand what we're doing here? We're going into our neighbor's business. Yes. We've already got a battle going at Oak Island. Now we're going to fire a shot over the bow to our neighbors to the west of us. Both of these towns have worked with Holden Beach for decades with common goals in conjunction with Brunswick County and the state of North Carolina, who are represented here today. So we are showing that we are not a team player. And besides that, we don't even have an official document, report of any kind that I know of why we should be doing anything to prevent Ocean Isle Beach from having an opportunity to follow through with their program. You're asking them to flush down all the dollars that they have spent, all the time that they've spent, all the energy. You asking them to back away, and oh, by the way, if they don't back away, you're asking the Corps of Engineers to pull the permit away. What right do we have to go over there and do that? We don't have anything, in my mind, that supports any reason other than an attorney that was wanting a job, and we are now saying, with all due respect, Peter, you're recognizing him as an authority on terminal groins because he's the only one that has supported it. Our own engineers are not supporting it. So what are we going to say to the judge of why we're doing this? I don't know. I really don't know. But I want the minutes to perfectly reflect. I'm 1,000% against this for multiple reasons. Public relations with our neighbors, lack of evidence supporting our position, and I could go on and on. But this is the biggest mistake in our sand project history. And oh, by the way, a little bit, just 1 minute about terminal groins. My father was fighting for sandbag groins and got it through the governor of North Carolina as a test project. The first sandbags on the North Carolina coast on the east end of Holden Beach, and blessed by the state of North Carolina. And by the way, that's almost 50 years that my family's been fighting this thing, And I have people coming in here in this town hall that my father was the first mayor, fought it his whole lifetime, decades and decades, and I have people come to this town that have been here 1, 2, and 3 years and know every damn thing. And I don't know how else I can say it any clearer. And you can vote me out of town hall because I don't want to be a part of this kind of crap. It's embarrassing, insulting, and how in the world I can go to Raleigh and beg for money and support? How in the world I can go to Washington, D.C. and beg for money and support? How in the world I can go to the government meetings such as we have a representative here this morning and say we need money for sand because we know everything about sand at Holden Beach. And we're just making a total ass out of ourselves. And if you don't believe it, watch the next election. Because the people are not going to stand for this. And by the way, just a simple question. Where's the money coming from? Because I guarantee you, if you pay this attorney wanting a job for $10,000 or $15,000, do you think that the town of Ocean Isle Beach is going to let hundreds of thousands of dollars wash away without retaliating? Now, where's that money going to come from? Do you know how much it costs to fight somebody with the kind of money that personal individuals that own the east end of Ocean Isle Beach, that have unlimited funds, plus the funds that Ocean Isle Beach has, you have a clue of what you're fighting. And by the way, how are you going to go to Ocean Isle Beach, Oak Island, and ask for support on any of your projects after you do this? How are you going to do it and look somebody like, oh, please help me? And by the way, I slapped you and caused you this and that. How are you going to do that? You're going to get no support for sand projects, highway projects, river projects, grants. Nobody's going to support you. I promise you, I've been doing this all my life. I know these people. And I know you all mean well. But you are going to put a dagger in the heart of the town of Holden Beach with all of our relationships. We have the House of Representatives person here this morning. Do you think the pressure is going to be on him to continue to not support us after we do what we're talking about doing to our neighbors? Count the votes. I beg you, if I've ever asked for anything, and I don't care if you don't elect me again, but for the town of Holden Beach's future, please don't do this. You will not get any support for anything from Holden Beach from all of our neighbors, because you will not be a team player, and you're going to prove by doing this that you're not a team player, because you don't have any evidence that says you have to do it. You've not allowed the town people to have an opportunity to speak. You haven't had the town attorney to speak. You don't have anybody that supports your motion except the guy that's going to get paid to do it, and you don't have any money set aside to do this battle with. You can move some money around, but that means it's coming from somewhere else. And oh, by the way, you're going to take it out of the sand fund? That's going to make the attorney's money more important than the money on the beach strand? Is that where the money's coming from? Take the money away from sand and put it in the attorney's pocket? People, please, for God's sake, think what you're doing. I've said enough. May I take mine?
Absolutely. I didn't even touch it.
Thank you. Anybody else want the floor? Is there a motion?
Excuse me, Commissioners. I apologize for interrupting. I'm an attorney for Ocean Isle Beach. I would respectfully ask you to reconsider taking public comment on this important decision. I would like it to be an informed decision. You'll make a decision today, but I would like it to be informed.
It's against our rules, and we don't have other folks that are here to represent the other side. So that's totally unfair. You don't have the.
board up there to represent.
So you don't have the Environmental Law Center, the Southern Environmental Law Center here. You don't have other folks at the.
If you could delay your decision and hold this in a regular meeting when there is opportunity for the entire public to be heard, we would appreciate that.
Did And point of order, I'm not going to, I will answer the mayor's questions that we did have a regular meeting on October 23rd where this subject was addressed. And we had an opportunity to discuss it.
I beg to
I have made the point. We did not
We
discuss,
had an opportunity
and
to
no
discuss.
And you
one-
did not take it.
and you did not take it. The three of you that have since raised that did not take the opportunity to at least say, I believe that this bears further discussion and we need to have a more detailed discussion at the very least. And at that point in time, we were in a meeting where the public could have commented at the end of the meeting and expressed themselves. That was less than a week ago. We don't have that much more information in front of us than we had then. You could have at least acknowledged that this should be open for more discussion, and you chose not to. So I disagree that there was discussion, there was a presentation, and then no discussion.
Discussion and possible action.
That is your agenda
October
item.
23rd.
That is
So
not what happened at the meeting.
I said there was an opportunity to do that.
And again, I'll point out that you did not take that opportunity to discuss it. We just listened to the presentation,
And now
we
we
went
are
on.
taking that discussion and possible action today.
And
I
again,
move that we take a 5-minute break.
I'll second that.
5-minute pause.
5-minute break,
Take a 5-minute break.
5 minutes. Back in session. All right, what's your pleasure, Commissioner?
I move that the board
No,
consider
no.
waiving the rules of order.
You have a motion on the floor, so be careful what you're asking to do.
Which one motion? Oh, that motion.
May I ask the town clerk whether or not in the overall rules of procedure, we are allowed, if we are unanimous, to open discussion to the floor?
That's correct, you could do that.
We can wait.
If there is unanimous,
Doesn't need to be unanimous, does it?
You're all here, so
But it
it doesn't need to be unanimous. It's
then would it be majority?
majority. correct.
Majority, all right.
And so, what do we need to do relative to the existing motion if I want to move that we waive all rules?
I believe you could suspend it. Let's see.
If I may, you've got a motion and a second on the floor. And the mayor had opened up for discussion that it's probably appropriate to amend that. And this is a mayoral thing to expand the discussion to accept that. I'm guessing here.
Let me make it a simple suggestion. Withdraw the motion, you can put it right back on the table.
Fair enough, I withdraw the motion.
I agree.
All right. All right, now you can do whatever you want to do.
I move that the board approve a waiver of the rules of order to allow for public discussion at this meeting.
Second.
Call for a vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We have unanimous approval. So I assume the process would,
Can you order the speaking order?
I was about to say, if you would like to speak and address the board, if you would raise your hand, be recognized, and come speak into the microphone. Is that mic hot, Madam Clerk?
I didn't turn it on, sorry.
When you come to the microphone, if you would, please give us your name.
Well, we can limit some time.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
I'm going to recognize County Commissioner Cook because he's got to leave, he has to leave the meeting and go to.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, thank you for allowing us to speak. I served as a commissioner. I live in Charlotte. I lived a good bit of my life in Ocean Isle Beach, but that has nothing to do with what I'm saying here. I have been a commissioner for 10 years, and I have spent most of my life in Brunswick County. We've had a very good relationship with the different municipalities. We have 19 municipalities. Every independent entity works together as a cohesive group in this county, and you've seen that with respect to the storm and how everybody pulled together. There will be agreements that will be coming before you, either in the short term or the long term, where you will need the cooperation and collaboration of other municipalities. If you take this action that's been discussed earlier, you will regress, you will set back the relationships that have been forged through the years, and it will be irreparable. It will take a very long time to do so. Although some individuals would be in favor of terminal groins, the initial one I understand was in 1842, according to Representative Eiler, by Captain Robert E. Lee. And there are two that are here in North Carolina, 4 in the second down in Florida that showed no adverse effect. And we spent over 10 years studying and working on it. The fact that Holden Beach doesn't want one is your business. That's your determination and your concern. The only thing as a commissioner, we have to keep throwing money at it. And you will come to us and you will ask for money, and we have to keep on doing it because we personally believe that by having trouble going in, it will reduce that amount of money. But that's your business. That's your deal. But go across the river and go across and start interfering with the actions of other municipalities. At the very least, would be considered being none of your business. At the very worst, would be reprehensible. What you will do, regardless of whether you say, well, I didn't do it, I was in favor, whatever, you are married to that decision, regardless of whether you're in favor of it, marginally in favor of it, against it, or technically you don't like it. It's really none of your business, what Ocean Isle does. Ocean Isle spent a lot of time, money, and effort to do this now. Just like it's none of Ocean Isle's business per se, I'll go over here and tell you how you spend all your decision-making perspective. And I'm sorry if I'm being blunt, I don't have a prepared statement. I am under a little bit of stress. I have a member of my family who's died, and I literally should be in the car right now to go 3.5, 4 hours to that funeral right now. But I'm here because of this event. I'm here because I represent this county and this district as well as this county. And I'm looking for the better, cohesive, overall, comprehensive perspective for this county and for this county. And that being said, I would say, whatever decision you have made, sir, I think is incorrect. Let me be blunt. You've not been here long enough to really understand the dynamics. And I will finish this. And I would say this, please, do one of two things. Either put this back into a regular discussion on a regular meeting night, or second and best of all, just stop this whole thing and drop the entire idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Holler, sorry for your loss, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're for allowing me to speak. I call the mayor Mr. Chairman most of the time. We're on the board together at Brunswick Community College. So we see each other fairly regularly. I'm not going to debate the value or not value of terminal loans, but just mention just a couple of things about them. Matter of fact, we fought this fight, and some of these fighting the fight for 20, 30 years. I know both of these mayors sitting here have been very active in allowing municipalities to protect their beaches. Terminal groin is an erosion control device. Protects the inlet from shoaling. If you mention the boats going in and out, it actually controls your sand erosion. You put sand in it, then all it's just trapped sand. It's leaky. Sand and water can go through it. In this case, it's a pile of rocks. It creates turtle habitat and creates bird habitat. That's been proven the last couple of years on ballhead. The little birds over there now in that area that they had, in the history of Ballhead Island. And as Commissioner Cook said, the first terminal grown in North Carolina was 1842 by Captain Robert E. Lee, then the U.S. Army, in Fort Macon. And there's a lot of articles about that, how that has performed over the 150 years, wherever it's been. And we passed a law around 2013 to allow this, allow 4 of them, and that's been amended to 6 up and down the coast. We want the richest beaches to be able to get them, and the other beaches have to wait in line and not get one if they want one. So I had asked myself when I heard about this, that kind of like the reporter, who, what, where, when, and why, right? So who is Ocean Isle Beach? 3rd Street on the east end of Ocean Isle Beach is now Front Row. I don't know how many people are that. 1st and 2nd Street are somewhere out in the ocean right now. And what is erosion control device and protects the inlet at the same time, cuts down your dredging costs. We've got a 2-to-1 match now of dredging fund, which we didn't have a few years ago with the state, but it still costs a lot of money to dredge. And where? East end of Ocean Isle Beach. And no science says that it's going to affect the west end. There's no science says
Hey, please turn the phones off, please. Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir. As I was saying, the location is the east end of Ocean Isle Beach, and there's no science existing today that I'm aware of. And I think I would be aware, I've studied this quite a bit, that says that it's going to affect the west end of Holden Beach, and there are protections built in just in case. That's not correct. When all the lawsuits are settled. There's a 2-year delay so far. There's been other projects that the Southern Environmental Law Center has delayed, the Monroe Bypass for 30 years almost. It cost millions and millions more.
That's time.
Other projects like the bridge at Sunset was delayed. It cost about 4 times eventually what it would have cost originally. So why jump into a lawsuit? Okay, that's why. Might make you feel good. Might make you get an award from the Coastal Federation. It might throw away taxpayers' money. And it might isolate Holden Beach from their neighbors. And I assure you, the credibility of a town, and we have 19 of them in the county, 13 in the district I represent, the credibility is very important when they come to Raleigh and say, how about us doing this for whatever town it might be, you know, if it's Charlotte or Sunset or Ocean Isle or Holden. How about doing so-and-so? And people there read the papers too. And you say, well, I want to do this for one of my towns. And they might have an objection and might shoot down what you're trying to do. Like they know better from Greensboro or somewhere else. But anyway, I'm going to stop right there, but you will be isolating Holden Beach to some degree. By the way, the citizens of Holden Beach are also citizens of Brunswick County, and they're also citizens of North Carolina. So I do have an interest in all the citizens. So, thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and I apologize for interrupting the meeting earlier, and I do appreciate the opportunity to make these comments. My name is Todd Ressler. I'm an attorney representing Ocean Isle Beach, formerly representing Holden Beach. You may recognize my name. I've represented Holden Beach on their terminal growing project for years. I'm not here today to try and change your opinion about terminal growings. Your opinions are strongly formed. But to let you know, I come into this with experience. Prior to law school, I went to graduate school in marine sciences, got a master's degree in coastal geology, studying sediment and transported inlets. I'm on the Coastal Resources Advisory Council. I teach ocean and coastal law at UNC Law School. Terminal groins are one tool that a beach can use. They've got a bad reputation from prior groins that were constructed years ago. It's different now. The law requires that these terminal groins be backfilled with sand. They are allowed to allow them to bypass sand. And there's been a lot of comments made today on how this groin would potentially impact Holden Beach. That's been studied in the EIS. There's an inlet management plan that requires monitoring and mitigation. Your end of the island will be monitored. If there are thresholds that are exceeded, there's no debate on what caused that exceedance. There will be mitigation that's required. Ocean Isle will pay for that. Sand will be put on your beach. But the EIS shows no impacts. Setting aside whether the terminal groin is the right answer or not for Ocean Isle, what you're doing today, I would like you to seriously consider. This is a time when communities should be working together, not against each other. The communities in Brunswick County should be working together. The coastal communities along our North Carolina coast should be going to the General Assembly looking for dedicated state beach funds. If we continue these disagreements between communities, it's going to be that much harder to get that work done. A perfect example is the Nye v. Emerald Isle case. Every community along the North Carolina coast filed an amicus brief in that case. I represented every community south of Carteret County, including Holden Beach, in favor of the public's rights to use the dry sand beach. If we work together, we can get things done. I would request that you do not file this amicus brief. Instead, let's meet between towns, starting with Holden Beach and Ocean Isle, and expanding it to Brunswick County. And then let's all come up with a plan and go to the state and seek a fund for dedicated beach renourishment. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Yes, ma'am? Yeah.
Good morning, Vicki Myers, 301 Ocean Boulevard West. I didn't come with prepared remarks either because I didn't think that we were going to have speakers. And when I saw this come up, I started reading as much as I could find on this subject. But whether Ocean Isle has a groin or not, I totally agree. That's their business. That's not our business. That is their business. Let them do them. They need to do their job just as you did. You made a decision for Holden Beach. So let them make their decision. However, they should be able to make their decision as long as it doesn't impact us. That's what I worry about. I just want to have in place the same protections for Holden Beach that we offered to Oak Island. And those are not in that document. So that's what I would ask of you.
If you could and I don't know what.
I can.
Yeah, sure. What are you seeking?
For example, we did extensive modeling, I'm sure you are aware, of that inlet. There was already a TAC that was going to be formed, which is not in your document. It addressed storm concerns with the wave refracting. I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head, so
Sure.
you have to forgive me.
It's a big document.
It's a really big document, and I read it really fast because we haven't had a lot of time here. Also, our annual beach report prepared by ATM, we can discuss if they're experts or not, but it talks about the historical detrimental effects of the dredging of the Shallotte Inlet on the west end. So I know we're talking about increased dredging, so that does concern me. I also I think that we should be starting from where we are today, not where we were back in 99 or 2000 or 2005. What that means is where the line is right now on our west end, that's where we should start our measuring. Not this theoretical line that's set 300 feet back from structures. That's not fair.
I'm sorry, I'm not following that. And what
I believe it's figure 6.6. Basically, you drew a line on the west end and said, well, we'll start worrying about this and starting our 2-year countdown when the erosion reaches that line. That's a whole lot of erosion on our west end.
Okay. We're going to hash that out in a separate meeting.
Well, these are my comments, Alan. I didn't get to really.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Did the bell go off?
Yeah, 15
I'm
seconds.
sorry, I didn't hear.
No,
Well,
15 seconds.
We made it louder for you.
No.
Jump.
Okay. Well, that was really a summary.
That's 5 in this meeting.
Thanks.
That's 5 phone calls or tones from a phone from one of our commissioners this meeting. 5. Yes, ma'am?
No, go ahead, I'm gonna sit up here.
I'm Dolly Mitchell, 132 Charlton Drive. I'm a taxpayer on this island, and I'm not one of the special interest groups who come in. First of all, I was appalled over the fact that we were not given permission to speak initially. That really concerns me. Basically, I feel like we need to stay out of Ocean Isle's business. And I'm speaking as a taxpayer on this island who is an active person who has been here for 40-something years. I appreciate what Alan had to say, the history, what's been done on this island. 3 of you are going to cut your nose off to spite your face if you're not careful, and it's going to harm Holden Beach.
Ms. Harlan?
Thank you for the opportunity to come before you. Thank you, Alan, Ms. Mayor, and Commissioners. I speak just simply from my heart. I've been here,
Your name?
sorry,
Your name?
oh, Ann Arnold. I'm at 121 Salisbury Street. I thought everybody was sorry. Anyway, I've been here for 30 years as a resident. I've owned property here since 1969 for the most part, and I have seen the ends of this island come and the ends of this island go. And I remember very distinctly when we opened Holden Beach West 2, because before that there was no land there to have a home on, because finally it started to grow. And recently we've had a couple of storms, and Holden Beach West, simply at the inlet, the dunes are basically gone. So how we're going to talk about impact from something that they do over on Ocean Isle Beach is beyond me, because nature has already made a big statement. I would just simply state we cannot get involved in our neighbor's business. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak?
My name is Debbie Smith, and I'm the mayor of Ocean Isle Beach and a lifelong resident of Ocean Isle Beach. I've been quite involved in coastal issues as my tenure as town commissioner and as mayor. I have over 30 years' experience in this. I'm certainly not an engineer. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a geologist. But I have observed the way nature reacts to our islands, what it can do to us, and it can give us a hard slap. Those of you that have only been here a few years, you do not understand. Mother Nature can change the total face of our island overnight. You know, we as mortals and as residents here do what we can to protect our property, our infrastructure, our livelihoods, that beautiful beach out there that we all enjoy, whether it's here at Holden, or it's at Ocean Isle, or it's at Oak Island. I feel it's our job to try to protect that and not be detrimental to our environment. I'm an environmentalist. I chose to live here because of the environment. So I consider myself an environmentalist as well. But you have to take sometimes a median course. Coastal communities in North Carolina over the last 20 years have worked hard to form friendships, coalitions, and support each other. Because what Nags Head may need today, I may need tomorrow. And that goes the same for Holden Beach, Ocean Isle, and Oak Island. We've worked hard to support coastal issues that impact our communities. There's organizations that cover every coastal municipality in North Carolina. We've lobbied the state for issues that we needed for funding. We're finally getting some funding for dredging, which we never had before. That didn't just happen. That took years of lobbying to get done. And if you go up there and they see us infighting among each other, we'll never get anything done. I've traveled to Raleigh with your mayor many a times to ask for many different things. Accommodations tax, we taxed ourselves to be able to fund and protect our beaches. We asked for it to be able to fund what we needed to put on our beach. So that working together is very important. You had your engineers, your coastal specialists look at this EIS. Y'all make comments on it. The EIS came back and addressed your concerns. And now, you know, years after the fact, new board came in and y'all want to change everything that's ever been done. It's your prerogative. You're the one sitting there with the votes. But I can tell you this will be a huge impact to the coastal communities in North Carolina. And you will be the one that calls it. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak? North Carolina State, you want to speak? Anybody?
I'm supposed to just listen and report.
All right,
But thank you for your consideration.
thank you. Anyone else? All right, board, back to you. Do you want to?
Yeah, I have just a couple of comments. Thank you, everybody. I mean, the reason, we typically don't have comments in special meetings. Very rarely do we. And we also don't like to be surprised with guests, to be honest with you, that we're not prepared to. It's a public meeting. Expert guests that we would like to hear both sides from the expert guests. And that's the intent of our rule that we enacted a couple of years ago. So, but I appreciate the comments. It is our business, like everyone said. I have no problem with, and I don't think anybody here has a problem with the terminal ground being built on Ocean Island. It is our business, though, how it affects the west end of Holden Beach. My understanding is that there is not a citizen advisory committee like Oak Island in our EIS. There are some differences and considerations that we do not have in the EIS that were granted to Oak Island in our EIS. So I would be open to understanding how we could work with Oak Island to address them. Ocean, sorry. To address them. And therefore,
I move we decline the opportunity to file an amicus brief with the court of the Ocean Isle Beach terminal growing matter.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
I move we decline the opportunity to file a brief.
Is there essentially we're open here and asking questions. Is there a willingness of Ocean Isle to discuss how that we can work together as far as having a citizen advisory committee, or how we can understand how we can participate in the permitting process and the building and how it affects the west end of Holden Beach.
Point of order here, we can't go back into the audience without the commissioner's approval.
I honestly believe that is a topic that we should have a discussion amongst ourselves. I do not disagree that being able to review again the proposed monitoring mitigation and perhaps update some of the parameters, particularly the length of time since thresholds were established, et cetera, to have a different baseline could be valuable. But I think that is something that we could have a meeting about or put into our next commissioners' meeting as a topic of discussion.
I don't disagree with that, but there's others besides the monitoring. There's the Citizen Advisory Committee and other provisions.
I would also say, as I said earlier, I know that our town attorney is going to be on site here next Monday. We were going to work on an ordinance. It could be practical to have a talk with our town attorney about appropriate steps to take to get the concerns that you have now expressed about impact on West End in front of the appropriate people without litigation.
I would just say that after all that we've discussed today, that I think the majority has come around to think that the motion or the agenda item is not a good idea. So why don't we just vote on that item and we can straighten out the other issues that may emanate from.
It's a motion in place.
Motion and a second still on the table. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All right. Anything else, Madam Clerk?
No,
Town
sir.
Manager?
No, thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.